Today is the 26th of May, 2013 year. This is our seminar dedicated to the chakras. We are considering with Yuahammer Rachik. My name is Vadim Zaporozhtsov, and all the active information on the website at the south point of Ru. Thus, friends, it turns out that the knowledge of what the chakras are is, in general, quite powerful knowledge. It will allow you to personally know yourself and manage yourself. Having learned to manage yourself, you generally have the opportunity to manage everything in the world. Now the next point concerning the form in which the knowledge related to the chakras from ancient sources has reached us. So, the more ancient the layer of knowledge, the more veiled and, well, as if allegorically, the whole science concerning the chakras. Well, starting with the appearance of such Tana, that is, texts dedicated to how yoga, and some texts already, the Middle Ages. There are more and more you can find clear details, clear mentions, and clear descriptions. But at the same time, despite all the clarity, these descriptions, as if from two sides, lead us to understand what Chak is. Or, to put it in such a more understandable language, we need to be given, on the one hand, a push from some images, from some feelings, experiences, sensations, and on the other hand, a push from some rather dry analytical schemes, from some more rigid structures, well, even drawings. In other words, it turns out that in order to describe the chakra, which in fact is one or another principle made of a combination of energy consciousness, in the text we are given both an impulse, a push of energy through all kinds of images, and an impulse, a push of consciousness through all kinds of concepts, mantras, geometry, and the like, and so on. That is, as if at the intersection of these two descriptive systems, it is just easiest to understand what a Chak is. Well, indeed, in modern science, in modern psychology, in the modern industry, already there. Related to the dissemination of information. It is known that a person has a figurative perception, but there is a logical perception. There are people who better understand, let's say, a particular topic through pictures, through some colors, shapes. And there are people to whom it is better to give all the information in a hard, dry description. Therefore, if one of you ever writes a book, remember that ideally, both pictures and text should be equally represented in any book. Only then will you, as it were, compensate for one extreme of such abstract thinking with the other extreme of imaginative thinking. Because by themselves, both abstract thinking and imaginative thinking are hopeless. They work only by their combination. At one time there was even such a theory, but allegedly, which said that a person has a left and right hemisphere of the brain there. That allegedly one is responsible for imagery, the other for logic. In fact, even then it was clear that this was a rather dubious theory, but in the sense that everything is not so simple. And now it is confirmed that yes, there is a certain correlation. Well, it is certainly not possible to say the left or right hemisphere. A lot depends on the factors of each person's individuality. But in fact it is. It's as if one part of our nature perceives logic better, the other part of our nature perceives the image better. There are people who perceive imagery better, but worse than logic. And there is the opposite. And therefore, if you perceive the best logic, then you need to work on compensating your perception through imagery. Or vice versa, you are too passionate about shapes, drawings, and so on, but your logical thinking suffers. A person is only perfect when both are equally represented. This is what guided the authors of ancient texts that describe the Chakra. That you will meet both abstract positions and concrete figuratively. But in any case, if you meet abstract or figurative positions there, you should remember that first of all, these texts claimed to give an impetus to your mind, and that you yourself, analyzing this or that part of your body, rediscovered the knowledge that the ancient Igigis paid. But all the same, the bulk of the work is supposed to be done by yourself. Therefore, you should set yourself up for a fairly good working varnish. And now we are going to go directly to the hammer lever, or that chakra, to which this seed is dedicated. And if anyone takes it, there are those who want to read aloud to us the corresponding text, which is called the Shat Chakra of Niruban, or the description of the 6 chakras, which was taken from the book by Arthur Vollen, aka John George Rudrew. The book was called Snake Power, so that we read a few provisions from this text. Anyone interested? Come on, yeah. And immortalize your name, yes. Please. So.
In the space in it of the spine on the right and on the left, there are 2 channels of the moon and the sun.
Oh, and let's stop. And now let's all sit up straight. Straighten our backs, neck, head. It is advisable to close your eyes. And let's take a mental look at the area of our spine from the base of our body to the top of our head, respectively. And we will try to sort of realize this area. And now we are going to listen to this text and, as it were, project all our imagination. Yeah, one more time from the beginning.
In the space outside the spine, there are 2 channels on the right and on the left, the lunar and the solar.
So, the description begins with the fact that, as it were, the central channel passes somewhere in the spine area. And to the right and left of the spine go as in 2 secondary channels, which are called lunar and solar here. Next.
In the middle, there is a dried channel, whose essence is the stands.
In the middle of the left and right channels, there is a Sushumno channel. And it is said that the essence of Sushumni Triguna. We will not dwell on the question of what the gunas are yet. We go further.
It has the shape of the sun, moon, and fire.
It means Sushumno. It is said to have the form of the sun, moon, and fire. And in fact, Here is the central Sushumno channel. It is also very complex in its structure. It seems to consist of different tubes inserted into each other, if you like. But moreover, these tubes smoothly pass from one to the other, continuously. And it is possible to distinguish, as it were, three zones. But it's like a little bit already from a series of other yoga, which makes sense to study at another seminar. Next, a little louder.
Her body, like a string of blooming white datura flowers, stretches from the middle of the khanda to the head, and the lightning inside her goes from the genitals in the head.
So, again, there is a description of the dried channel here. We will not touch on it at this seminar. We need to get to the description of the chakra faster. Next.
Inside it, there are four not 4-day glowing pranavas with a pubis, and can be reached by yujins. It flows like a spider web and permeates all the lotuses located inside it. Her nature is pure reason. She's fine with them hair strung on her. Inside, it is the Brahma Nadi, which extends from the opening of the couple's mouth and the top to the place beyond which the adidema arrives.
Already, yes, it is necessary to stop where. So, look further now. Here it is. This is a typical, well, quite characteristic text, which, as you understand, a person who is not initiated will not understand what is being said. And if we don't know any Sanskrit there with you, then it's not clear what we are talking about at all. Therefore, some explanations need to be given here. In fact, this is a rather complicated topic related to the management of the central channel, and it consists in the fact that the central channel that connects our basic Kundalini energy at the base of our body is in the same place where the Muladhara earth principle is located, with the top of the head, where the center of our consciousness is located. The central channel permeates all the other chakras. The central channel itself is quite heterogeneous. He seems to be going to a degree of refinement. And the most central part of its central channel, there is no space and time in it, friends. This is a very strange remark statements. And in fact, it says that there is no on. But as you only you. In fact, it is said that as soon as you reach the essence of the central channel in your meditation, in fact, you connect consciousness with energy or receive the original power of your higher self. And it is precisely this central part in this text that is called the four non-nadis. The peculiarity of it is, friends, that any of your meditation immediately begins to come to life. In other words, it is enough for you to think about certain sensations, experiences, and achievements. As there are four non-nadis inside, they are instantly realized into the energy of embodiment. In other words, there is such a bundle of very interesting consciousness with energy. This is a bundle about what is primary, what is secondary. Is your consciousness primary, or is your energy primary? In fact, we can't say that. Energy is tied to consciousness, consciousness to energy. But here's what will be the first impulse in this very interesting question. That is, if there is your will of the first impulse, you want to feel this or that experience in your microcosm, in your inner universe, then this awareness will immediately be followed by an experience. And therefore, in order to experience the highest yogic experience, you just need to think about it. But this will happen if you discover the land, but Nadia, that is, the central channel, and reach the deepest part of it for not Nadia. Here. And there are some other explanations that say that at the base of our body, where the Muladhara Chakra, the principle of the earth, is located, the so-called Kundalini energy rests in this very principle of the earth. Our basic energy, and, as it is claimed, it is there in a kind of hidden, dormant state. And here, such descriptions were given allegorically, that one opening of the central channel is described as the mouth of Hera, and the other place in which Adi Deva resides. The word Adi in this, well, means, as it were, initially. Well, in fact, it is indirectly indicated that the material and the super-idealistic are connected. Energy and consciousness are connected. Our lower center is connected with our higher center. And then we go.
She is as beautiful as a chain of lightning flashes, thin and delicate as a lotus fiber. She shines with the mind of the sages. She, whose real nature is pure consciousness, is extremely current, and she is the embodiment of all possible bliss. The door to Brahman Ramat shines through her mouth. Here, in this place, is the entrance to the area watered by nectar, and it is called the node, as well as the mouth.
Yeah, so, well, here's a more descriptive explanation of what we have inside there. In fact, the entrance to the Sushumna channel is closed from below by the energy of Kundalini. Channel Sushumni. Sushumno in this description, he seems to be, the closer to his center, the more fantastic properties he has. That is, the most central part of it, which is flooded with light, means that there is no space and time in it, as they sometimes say. It has a very interesting feature, that any of your thought form, or any of your will immediately begins to be realized. And related to this is a whole series of very practical exercises from visualization yoga. When you just need to open the central channel in yourself, get closer to the feeling of its nature. And in the future, any of your thoughts or dismiss a statement begins to materialize. Materialize both in terms of, well, internal experiences and in more global external achievements. Or in another way, it is enough for you to think, let's say, about the connection of consciousness with energy, as this is the impulse of awakening the Kundalini energy, connecting it with consciousness, which causes an extreme euphoric state. That is, a state of ecstasy, a state of experiencing such a cosmic experience. What numerous Yugov treatises vaguely hint at. This is some kind of super bliss, super pleasure. That is, after experiencing which, a person, as in the fire of pleasure, no longer reacts to any other pleasure. Here is an ordinary world. What can it give us? He can give us a set of some kind of pleasures. The pleasure of eating, the pleasure of sex, the pleasure of wealth, the pleasure of power, the pleasure of having anything there. Well, together the list is quite narrow. And it is understandable when, say, we are told in this or that, when we are told in this or that teaching, give up, say, wealth, or give up power, or give up a new Mercedes, and not on foot. Here, or ride a packed train, you know, to the eyeballs, right. Then every person, if he is not a hypocrite, in theory should ask himself, is it easy for you to say this? And you try to do it. First of all, if I refuse, then my life will become worse and harder. Secondly, why should I, as a matter of fact, refuse it? And sometimes these slogans sound beautiful, give up everything. But they remain the benefit of stupidity, unrealizable in reality. On the other hand, each of us understands perfectly well that if we have at least the slightest dependence on wealth, power, I don't know what, then it's enough to pull us by this thread as we become unfree. In other words, we can be manipulated. Why? Because we are terrified of losing some kind of pleasure associated with these external factors. And in yoga, the following thing is said that if you, after practicing yoga for a very long time, rediscover your inner pleasure, through their pleasure in the central channel, then you will get such a strong experience, after which all other pleasure will become gray, faceless and uninteresting. And only after this experience, when you have your inner pleasure, which is always with you, which does not depend on anything, which depends only on the fact that it is enough to do certain yoga exercises, how you will get it. That's only after that, with a clear conscience, without hypocrisy, you will really be able to give up wealth, power, and everything in the world, which, strictly speaking, in the history of India was very common when those high-ranking people and rich people led a simple, wandering lifestyle at the end of their lives. They refused everything. They devoted almost all their time to spiritual exercises, yogic exercises. Moreover, as a rule, they did not stay in one place for a long time, so they did not need palaces, elephants, gold, or anything at all. Why? Because they more than made up for this pleasure through internal yoga practice. For this reason, you should also have a very clear vector of what yoga is leading you to. In fact, yoga sooner or later should lead you to such a powerful, as it were, treasure, to such a powerful pleasure, after experiencing which, first of all, you can no longer be manipulated. It won't be possible to somehow, well, force you to do what you don't want, well, for fear of, say, losing something. Well, I want you can be taken away, if you already have everything inside. Here. Therefore, strictly speaking, as stated in some yoga books, if people knew what the yoga experience leads to, everyone without exception would start practicing yoga, right? But since we do not have pre-established knowledge, otherwise it would limit our will, then, in fact, it turns out that if such a treatise comes to you because of your good karma there, I do not know why. and you became interested in it and started going in this direction, then sooner or later you will come to this goal, and if not, then not. Here, therefore, you know, in addition to those highest abilities, which we have already talked about at this seminar, and which come after mastering certain chakras, there comes some absolutely fantastic pleasure from yoga. And it, in turn, friends, is such a guarantee that you will not abuse superpowers. Because you can abuse superpowers only if, say, your pleasure is somewhere outside, and you want to achieve it outside. And you start using all these ways of manipulating your own chakras and structures in order to influence the people around you. And if you understand that there is neither your happiness nor your meaning out there, then the only case when you will use these superpowers will remain only you know which one. This is a help to all living beings when they are mistaken and when they need to be, you know, brought out of another impasse and not a crisis. Because, you know, there are moments when people behave no better than a flock of sheep that runs the Filk Award into the abyss. And only in this case, you will use your superpowers to control, not at all because you want to control these sheep. Here, why do you need these sheep if you have a whole universe inside there, right? But only out of pity that you already see that they are going to perdition, they are not. But you can't stop them in the usual ways, but you need to do this. That is, and therefore, on the one hand, in all yoga treatises, they constantly call on us. You never demonstrate these superpowers for show. And if you use them extremely secretly, and only to one purpose. For the purpose of helping people to know themselves, to overcome all suffering. But not in any way in order to demonstrate them in public, to earn fame or money there. If you start doing this, then, despite all your yogic merits, as these treatises say, you will get very negative karma. Very negative karma. And subtly negative karma, friends. I have encountered subtly negative karma a couple of times in my life, in my personal life. Do you know what it is? What twists you so much that you won't even break? And the most interesting thing, you know, is that all the circumstances are built around your life in such a way that you can't even tell anyone about it. This, you know, the English have such a saying, saffron insight. That is suffering, gritting your teeth, so loosely translated. So you would be happy to whine, cry, but you understand that it's okay, but that's how it all came together, that you can't even share it with even the closest people. Here, and what does the law of karma have to do with it? It is universal in this respect. What you sow, you reap. Therefore, by and large, all yoga practices related to the chakras, they will really give you a lot. They give you a lot of pleasure, experiences and experiences. And the ability to control the universe, but only everything that is connected with the control of the universe from the outside. It will go, you know, in this way of detachment. That is, you will, according to the texts, well, as you know how to go to work and perform your duties. It's like, you know, being such a full-time wizard. And you just have to work miracles. But they themselves would not be, well, tied to them in any way. That is, we should just do our job, even though it seems like magic. Here, this can, I say again, be read in sufficient detail in many yoga books. But we go further, yes.
Now we are entering the heart lotus. It is attached to the mouth of the body, dried and located between the anus and the genitals.
Here. And now, as a matter of fact, we have come to that chakra, or that lotus, which we will begin to analyze at this our seminar on chakras, and we will continue at the next one. Here it is called Adara, but in modern literature, the name Muladhara is more common. In one of the possible translations, it can be translated as follows, as the fundamental, supporting center, or what everything rests on, or the root center. You know, just as a tree rests on the root, so the structure of our internal channels and centers rests on the center located at the base of our body.
Вот подобно этому и структура наших внутренних каналов и центров опирается на вот расположенный в основании нашего тела.
And in the Shat chakra, not Rubani, in the future, a description of this center will be given here. It started with the fact that its localization is immediately given. This is the area of the sacrum, the genitals, that is, the base of our body, when, let's say, we sit in meditation. In the lotus position, that's out there somewhere. And again, it says here that, in fact, we can assume that the entrance to the central channel is located here. In the future, we will find out that the Kundalini energy is also located there. Therefore, in this respect, the Muladhara chakra is quite complex. Not only is the entrance to the central channel, not only is the principle of the earth responsible for the principle of smell there, not only is it responsible for an emotion, say such as fear, but also the place where the Kundalini energy sleeps or sleeps.
Где дремлет или спит энергия кундалини.
Which will also be discussed here. Then we go.
It has 4 crimson petals.
Well, let's do it now. He means the Muladhara lotus has 4 petals. And usually at all seminars related to the chakras, I ask you to immediately draw something the way you perceive it by ear. And then it's always very interesting to compare your drawings. So we begin to draw a lotus with 4 petals. They drew it. Next. Read it again.
Now we are entering the author lotus. It is attached to the mouth under the dried one, and is located between the arm and the genitals. It has 4 crimson petals, and its head.
So, what? It has 4 crimson petals, its head is hanging down. So what's down there? Next.
On the petals, letters of a brilliant golden color are 2 to 100.
So, we signed that our petals are crimson in color, and accordingly, the corresponding letters of the Sanskrit alphabet are written on these 4 petals. And let's write down these letters. So, this is the letter VA, this is the letter SHA, this is the letter SHA, and this is the letter C. I remind you for those. While I'm explaining for those who don't know, Sanskrit is built on a syllabic alphabet.
построен на слоговом
That is,
алфавите.
any letter there is a word ending in the vowel a.
То есть
Therefore, when they say the letter
любая
is actually
буква
pronounced as a
представляет
word.
из себя слог, заканчивающийся на вот гласную а. Поэтому, когда говорят буква, на самом деле
Once
произносится
again,
как
these syllables and s drew, respectively, these letters of the syllable, and they were drawn.
ша и са. Нарисовали, соответственно, эти.
What color is new there?
И они были
No,
нарисованы
crimson is our
желтым
petals,
цветом.
but
The petals have a shiny golden color.
У нас лепестки,
so somehow they depicted the brilliant golden color of these letters there. Don't we have colored pencils?
золотой цвет этих букв.
Me.
А у нас нет цветных карандашей, а?
Yes, I'm reading.
Here is the chakra of the earth, surrounded by 8 shining roots.
So, we signed the principle of the earth.
Итак, подписали принцип Земли.
So, this chakra was surrounded by 8 shining spears.
Значит, и эту чакру окружили
They drew 8
8
copies,
сияющих
which means that
копий.
their sharp parts look outside.
Нарисовали 8 копий, которые, значит, своими
And,
острыми
accordingly,
частями
they
смотрят
surround you
вверх.
from 8 sides.
Ну, и, соответственно, с 8 сторон окружают
Surround this chakra.
эту чакру.
Next,
It is bright yellow and beautiful, like lightning, and be a Yahara syllable lamp.
so then we come across a very interesting detail here, that the principle of the earth has its own mantra, the fundamental mantra of the earth.
Такой подробностью, что у принципа Земли есть своя мантра, основополагающая мантра
That is,
Земли.
the mantra that gave birth to the earth principle.
То есть та
And it
мантра,
sounds like the
которая
syllable
породила
lamb.
принцип Земли. И звучит она
Therefore,
как
the syllable
слово
lamb
«лам».
was written in the center of the chakra.
Поэтому в центре чакры написали слог «лам».
Read it again further.
Now we are entering under the heart lotus. It is attached by cardboard to the dried course, located between the anus and the genitals. It has 4 crimson petals, and its head hangs down. On the petals are letters of a brilliant golden color, from 2 dots. Here is the earth chakra, surrounded by 8 shining spears. It is bright yellow in color and beautiful as lightning, and budget choirs of words to you.
Here. So, we count further.
Adorned with 4 arms, and sitting on the king of the brakes, he carries the child of the Creator, shining like the rising sun. He has 4 arms and 4 times the wealth of his motorcycle-like face.
Here. And then look at what a sharp U-turn. And even a Western person does not understand what they are writing about here. It seems about petals, about some of these, as it were, spears, about some syllables of the mantra.
Про какие-то эти самые, как его,
And suddenly, you know, a description of some god, man, being, it's unclear who.
ну, такое, знаете, описание какого-то
And here again,
человека,
this is a typical description of the charts. On the one hand, an abstraction is given in the form of petals, mantras, some kind of geometry.
видите, лепестков, мантр,
And then, as it were, some human-like images are superimposed on it,
потом как бы на нее же накладываются какие-то образы.
and it turns out, once again, as we have already told you, on the one hand, you have a series of symbols lined up, and on the other hand, a series of images. And if you take a number of associative symbols and a number of images and transfer them to the base of your body, And begin to reflect on these symbols and these images right at the base of your body. Then you more easily, overcoming some layers of dirt, get to the inner structures of the sensation of this chakra.
Вот как раз в основании вашего тела, то вы с большей легкостью, преодолевая какие-то наслоения грязи,
And thus, it is easier and faster to know this or that chakra. Otherwise, first of all, when you turn your mental gaze to the base of your body, what will you see there? Then you will see all the dirt that has accumulated during your previous life. And sometimes you know, that's how they lift some statuette or some object from the bottom of the ocean. And there's no statuette in sight. Everything was overgrown with shells, everything was covered with algae. And it takes a long work of a restorer archaeologist there to get to the inner mechanism and understand how everything is done there. You know, somewhere there, not more than 100 years ago, an antikythera mechanism was found near an island, it's called. This mechanism, which in ancient times could calculate how the sun moves, the moon, calculate the eclipse, and so on. But it took a very long time before scientists were really interested. Nothing was visible. And only after they were enlightened, respectively, with X-rays and other methods. Only after that we realized that yes, in fact, there are some gears under this layer of these shells, and so on and so on. And before that, they just don't pay much attention. Unfortunately, this is the same situation with you and me. We close our eyes and with our inner eyes, let's say, we start looking at the base of our body. But something we see is quite dark. Foggy area, without clearly expressed any there, you know, here are the details. Why? Because these details are covered with this layer of some kind of associative dirt. Well, in the future we will touch on this. After all this dirt is removed, friends, it will be enough for you to just direct your thought to one or another chakra. As it begins to resonate, simply from what you thought about it. It starts, well, as it were, to produce its effect, simply because you have expressed your will to look at it. She is completely at our mercy. But before that, there is still a long, as they say, period. Cleaning period. And in order to know where to clean, what to clean, and what to find there, such images are given. At first, they gave abstract geometry, and now they began to give some more images of living beings. Then what is there? Once again, this is where the living beings are first and then.
Adorned with 4 arms and sitting on the king of elephants. He carries the child of the Creator, flipping like the rising sun. He has 4 arms and 4 times the wealth of his lotus-like face.
So then, here are the details that were immediately born here. The figure, respectively, of God, who sits in the center on an elephant, and this God, respectively. How many are there? 4 hands. What else do we have?
He carries the Creator's child.
Well, he's probably referring to the lotus next. I mean, an elephant with this lotus on it.
Yes, from him, he has 4 hands and 4 times the wealth of his similar face.
Hence, the wealth of his lotus of a similar face is 4-fold. Well, that is, this God is very beautiful. Next.
A goddess named Daki lives here.
And then, friends, this is also a very important remark in the description of the chaks, that after all the geometry is given, and the images of the gods are already given, and these gods always appear in pairs.
того, как вся геометрия дана и даются уже образы богов, эти боги
That is, a man is a woman,
предстают в паре. То есть мужчина,
like consciousness and energy. The lord of one or another chakra and his queen, girlfriend.
властелин той или иной чакры и его королева, подружка.
That is, again, so that in our meditation we balance, as it were, all our experience from perceiving, say, someone male, with all our experience from perceiving someone, well, as it were female.
Как бы весь наш опыт от восприятия, скажем, кого-то мужского.
In other words, imagine that you are sitting in meditation, perceiving at the base of your body such a geometric picture, with these petals, with these letters. But among other things, an elephant has already appeared, but a four-armed one is sitting on the elephant, which means God. And he's not sitting there alone, he has a girlfriend, a wife, who is called a dakini here.
She has four arms, shining with charm, and her eyes are brilliantly red. It sparkles.
Okay, stop. And so this friend here, who was called Detenya here, also has four hands, and a very interesting detail. Her eyes. So how's it going?
And her eyes are brilliant red.
Brilliant red? Who has other red eyes? Oh yeah, red eye. No, friends, this is not a photo. This is not related to the photo flash. Here. Well, let's leave this topic for now, although the topic is very allegorical. Then we go.
It sparkles like the light of many rising suns at the same time, and it always supports the manifestation of pure consciousness.
It means that it sparkles like millions of suns, and it always maintains a pure consciousness. Look, here's a very beautiful, allegorical one. An allegorical way of transmitting information. It is quite characteristic of yogic knowledge. That's why with such a stupid, let's say, Western straightforwardness, as a rule, you can't understand anything. At one time, many Americans who were interested in tantric knowledge, yoga knowledge back in the 60s, flooded there, including to India, and began to read and translate certain texts so stupidly. And the meaning was slipping away. The fact is that it is necessary to cook in the tradition for a long enough time, to have a series of images in front of your eyes, in order to decipher what is meant and what is hinted at. It turns out that any description is, a rebus that needs to be deciphered. But if you begin to understand what they are hinting at, then you are given such an intuitive push to rediscover certain knowledge, certain practices, or certain exercises in yoga. In any case, in the future, everything begins to build up into a single picture, where each such remark is like a puzzle, adding a general, perception, general impression. And in general, everything that is connected with this female image of the Dakini was later reflected in a variety of such other texts of Egypt, about Egypt. And all kinds of meditations, in particular, here, let's say, such a meditation on the inner woman is known. What kind of inner woman is this? And at the same time, there is a known principle of energy that responds to our consciousness. Please note that we are considering with you the principle of the earth at the base of our body. and the principle of consciousness at the top of our head. But at the same time, if we do certain practices and turn our consciousness to the base of our body, then it passes unhindered and begins to awaken, even in the most inert such, at the most inert level of the earth principle, giving us friends, abilities and superpowers. In other words, there is still a channel that responds even at this very, very rough inert level. And that's how it's very elegantly said here. Once again, the description of the Dakini.
Her forearms are shining with loveliness, and her eyes are brilliant red. She sparkles like all the many poses that arise at the same time, and she always supports the manifestation of pure consciousness.
So, and that is, roughly speaking, our consciousness, in whatever weak manifestation it may be, always has an ally at the base of our body, which supports it and does not allow, as they say, bestiality to win. Beyond her,
near the Canada called Vira, and at the base of the Muladhara lotus, there is constantly a radiant, beautiful and gentle Komarova, which is a triangle of 3 jura. Here the Vu, called the standard and even redder than the flower, is alive. And it is the Lord of Being, sparkling like 10 million souls.
So, then there are even more mysterious and difficult to understand details. About what is, as it were, the Muladhara region. This is also another area where the dormant energy of Kundalini is located. After that, a rather abstract image of a triangle directed downward is given again. Moreover, its color is red. And such rather vague hints at on some principles related to life, with the enjoyment of continuing life, and so on and so forth. Here, and in the future, this kind of rebus is also deciphered as follows, as if this triangle symbolizes the triple force willpower, the power of knowledge, and the power of action. And, in fact, as it were, if through this appeal to the inner woman, or to the Dakina at the base of our body, we use the triple power of will, knowledge, and action, then in the future, we can easily awaken the energy of Kundalini. That is, in fact, here is a link to the removal of yoga. Next. Yes, let's reread it again. These texts need to be reread several times in order to at least catch, well, at least to understand something at all.
Near the mouth of the Nadi, called Vira, and at the base of the Muladhara lotus, there is constantly a shining, beautiful and gentle Komaruka, which are a triangle of 3.
It means a mosquito, or in another way. Yes, and that means Komarupa, which is the triangle of Tripura. So, Komarupa is in one of the translations, so to speak, this body is pleasure. Kam's body, Kama pleasure rupa form, and which at the same time is Tripura, or, well, like 3 levels of being. And in one of the allegorical variants of these are 3 cities. 3 cities. In general, everything that is connected with such symbols of 3 cities, 3 puras. It is very often found in texts and has a lot of such, narratives in such mythological literature. Sometimes very beautiful, thought-provoking. Sometimes, well, in general, in the myths of ancient India, this theme is perfectly played out. And as if these descriptions, they should, in theory, prompt a person reading to a link between the myths of ancient India, telling how, among other things, ignorance was defeated, which, so to speak, consisted in overcoming 3 cities or 3 planes of existence that did not allow, as they say, to win myself. When you attacked one of the cities, the other 2, you were attacked from the rear. By the way, in the Russian tradition, I don't know how much it is firm where she came to us, there is a certain analog to a certain extent. This is Serpent Gorenik. Remember, he also made a head. By the way, it's very interesting to track down where this mythology came from. Here. In other words, it means that a means of overcoming 3 cities, or as a triple medicine, that can immediately defeat the most heterogeneous layers of existence. That is, it is also found in the Muladhara Czech. Once again, this text was cited by Arthur Avalon in his famous book Snake Power. Snake Power is a work dedicated to Kundalini Yoga. Therefore, friends, this is exactly Kundalini Yoga in its true sense. Unfortunately, now Kundalini Yoga is not understood in any way. And some kind of incomprehensible jerking of arms and legs, and something else there, yes. But you must remember that all these exercises and jerking, they were supposed to lead only to using the mechanism of launching the Kundalini energy. And it is indirectly described in this text, and in the same texts as here. Unfortunately, here our slightly Western superficiality does not allows, well, to interpret one thing for another. Then we read,
Here is a wall called Kantarka, and even redder than the flower of the gangs at the Jeep. And it is the Lord of Being, sparkling like 10 million honeycombs.
So, there is a huge amount, I say again, of all kinds of such details. They, friends, are all very important, make sense, and we will talk about them. What? Let's go.
Inside his triangle is his own, in the form of a Phineas lingam, turned head down, beautiful, as if from beaten gold. It can be known by Ozerzani, and it resembles a young leaf in shape and color. How charming the cold, lightning-like moonbeams are. How beautiful is he, the deity who resides here in the sacred place of Shiva, in the bliss of his form like before.
Yeah. So, look, then there is still a general layering of the description. In general, I say again, in this respect, the Muladhara lotus is very complex. There are a lot of things there. There is the principle of the earth. There is the Kundalini sleeping, rolled up. There is the entrance to the land. Well, there you can say, the starting point for many, well, how can I tell you, practitioners and technicians. And then let me do it myself now. So, inside his triangle, there is an ampoule, in the form of a lingam, turned upside down, beautiful, as if it were made of cast gold. It can be understood with contemplation, and it resembles a young leaf in shape and color. How charming cold, like. Cold. Like the color of lightning, moonbeams, so beautiful is he. The deity who resides here, in the sacred place of Shiva, in bliss, is shaped like a whirlpool. That is, once and for all, they gave us something else, some kind of set of images. That is, in the future, when you begin to practice the erased exercises, some processes will go on with you. Then lines from the description of these texts will pop up by themselves. Indeed, there is such a certain stage of yoga when you suddenly feel that as if your Muladhara lotus has started to rotate. Actually, why is there even such a word as wheel, chakra? Chakra means wheel. That at a certain stage of practice, suddenly you have something in motion there. It began to rotate, and this generates some sensations. And, you know, it's one thing you just did something and started to feel it, but it's another thing, you read about it before. And it's so soothing. This suggests that you, in general, are not crazy, that you are not the first one. That people in front of you also went in this direction. And this makes it very, you know, so permissive. It even makes you feel very good. So, next.
Above him, the sleeping Kundalini, thin as the fiber of a lotus stalk, shines with its own Kulinga. She who misleads the whole world with illusions covers her mouth with herself, even if it is Ranutu. Similar to a spiral shell, it resembles a snake in shape, wrapped around Shiva 3.5 times. And its light, like a bright flash, is long.
So then look here, you are also such an image. Have you seen a sink wrapped in a set? And this is the image given that our basic energy, it is rolled up into 3.5 turns. And in the future there will be such another detail, and holding its tail in its mouth. That is, she kind of shoved it. And on the one hand, it's purely such, you know, experienced sensations, when something starts to wake up in you. And something is so twisted there, right? On the other hand, you realize that it's all spinning there, and it's somehow spiraling along, but it's self-locked onto itself. And in fact, such a real, with a capital letter Kundalini Yoga, as stated in the texts, begins when these spirals begin to unfold. When the Kundalini energy first, as if so figuratively opens its mouth, its tail slips out of the mouth. Then these spirals begin to unwind, 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 and now it is already out of such a rotational movement. Yes, it has the possibility of translational. And this is a very serious topic here in Kundalini Laya Yoga, when the Kundalini energy begins to rise up through the Sushumna channel, to the next chakra, to the next center. But more on that later. So this is the whole experience, friends, right? We read, we don't understand. When you start practicing, and you encounter even the slightest glimpses of some processes, these are very strange sensations. Very strange experiences, very spiritual, as it were, very intense, right? And in the future, you begin to appreciate every word, every letter, every hint in such treatises. And think for a long, long time. And then, you know, an intuitive knowledge of something else is born. You take a completely different text, you start counting, but through another series of associations, another knowledge comes to you. You know, as a form of nonverbal learning, a form of nonverbal knowledge, where you are not directly told, because you still cannot directly explain what it is. We, in fact, cannot directly explain to a person, let's say, what lemon tastes like, yes, to a person who has never tried repairs. But these subtle sensations are very difficult to convey. And, you know, to convey them, a series of images, then abstract paintings, then images, then abstract paintings are born. And you certainly can't go wrong at the intersection. Well, as it were, where to go and what to follow next.
Her pleasant lips are like a barely audible buzzing of the roll of the lovesick in what?
I. This is what Kundalini energy means.
And as a quiet chord of harmonious music, it is she who supports everything that exists in this world through inhalation and exhalation and shines in the cavity from the Hera chain of brilliant lights.
So, look further. Here are some very interesting other details that begin to pop up when you start practicing. If you are a very beautiful image, like a swarm of buzzing bees united by love. How many of you have ever seen a swarm of bees? Raise your hand. Once? A lot, yes. Because, to be honest, I saw a swarm of bees for the first time in my life, in my opinion last year. Or a phase of the past, I don't know. Well, I mean live, not there, not on TV. Here. It's really a very strange sight. So the droplet flies and buzzes. Just zap. It flew, once it caught on a tree there, it means. Well, then somewhere else then, and so on. It's like this, like this, like this continuous hum, as if some kind of energy is working. Such a transformer is Goody. And the situation is similar, and when we start working with our basic principle, and at a certain stage, we suddenly begin to feel a vibration at the base of our body, like the buzzing of bees. That is, before waking up, the sleeping Kundalini energy can be consciously like a buzzing at the base of our body. And with that later already. Well, here we are now. Now we are going to make a kind of small insertion of practical exercises, because theory does not give much from practice. Here. And from this, quite specific practical exercises are born. What should be done, what sound vibrations should be done, what movements should be done, and so on, so on. In order to get closer, firstly, to the awareness of the Muladhara chakra, secondly, to the awareness of the Kundalini energy, and thirdly, to try to awaken this emanation of the Kundalini energy. Which means, but more on that later. Once again, this paragraph here, please.
Her pleasant lips are like the barely audible buzzing of bees distraught with love, and like a quiet chord of harmonious music, it is she who supports everything that exists in this world through inhalation and exhalation and shines in the cavity of the hammer with a chain of brilliant lights.
So, well, by the word she means the goddess Kundalini. She is, of course, she is feminine, energy. What is good about Sanskrit? What is good about Russian? And what is bad about English, friends? Well, we say she's a girl, she's energy. And in English, let's say, the language where the masculine, feminine, and neuter gender, actually according to strange, well, incomprehensible laws for us, is distributed wherever it can. On a cat, you can say, let's say, it's it. Not him, not her, but it. Is it true or not? I was told an anecdote that in the Ukrainian language a male dog. A dog.
A dog, a dog.
How?
He's a dog.
Oh yeah. He's a dog. Yes, that is. But these are friends. This is invaluable information when we are given another floor. Here. But with such a stupid, say, translation of Sanskrit into English, and then from English into Russian, very often due to the loss of the genus, we, well, as a matter of fact, lose knowledge. And so there is also a continuation of this theme of energy, well, as if related to Kundalini Yoga, with Kundalini energy. This is yoga, falling in love, which in fact, pay attention, buzzing about madly in love with what? And it follows that the most beautiful way to awaken the Kundalini energy is through falling in love. That is, when you are in a state of falling in love, in fact, the highest love, in fact, it is equivalent to a soft, good, beautiful way of awakening the Kundalini energy. This is, strictly speaking, the main entrance to the area of Kundalini energy. Do you understand? And everything else is just like, well, auxiliary, so to speak, tools. Unfortunately, it is to the West that Kundalini Yoga has penetrated in such a stripped-down mechanistic form. And there's more, you know, like, as if a lot of things are lost from this. Well, then we read.
Within this region, the transcendental Sri Parameswarya, the Supreme Lady who awakens eternal knowledge, dominates her own league. She, with her wonderful art of creativity, almighty time, and she is the subtlest of all subtle purgatory, of that continuous flow of nectar that flows from eternal bliss. The whole universe and this cauldron are sanctified by its radiation.
Friends, if you decipher every word here, you can write a whole volume on the structure of the human body. Look, there is such a thing even further away that it is believed that from the top of our head, from the area of consciousness, a stream of consciousness flows to the very bottom. And whether it is absorbed, as if it is recruited here by the basic energy. And if we combine the basic energy at the base of our body and consciousness at the top of our head, then a lot of such opportunities open up. Once again, when it's enough for you to just think about something, how it begins to manifest itself, both in your life and in the environment around you. At the same time, such a link, you know, which later found such a wide application in practice. In particular, I came across Taoist practices, and of such an alchemical nature, where it was believed that in order to achieve immortality, you need to turn your body into a kind of chemical cauldron, and cook this elixir without death. And in fact, I came across some in yoga as well. Here is such even about. There is a yoga section. One of them is connected with the so-called rasa yoga, where there is an analogy of this inner alchemy. That is, if you begin to connect consciousness with the energy at the base of your body in a certain way, and do not let this connection get lost, then sooner or later, you begin to cultivate such a center of power at the base of your body, connected directly with Muladhara. Muladhara chakras. But this is stated in other sources. In general, in fact, a huge number of texts, as far as I know, as far as I have come across. They have not even been translated yet. I was once invited to one stash in one library. We have here, by the way, in the Soviet Union, when I saw shelves full of manuscripts, and no one even knows what is there. Well, so casually, what do you know there from the series there is the most? Shat Chakra, yes, I'll try there. Deprived of the chakra did not fall, yes. Just imagine, you came to a bookstore, and they gave you a book. It is called The Shat Chakra Has Not Fallen. So what's next? Would you buy such a book? Hardly, yes. And if everything else is in Sanskrit, then in general here. So that's what I'm saying, that there are numerous branches and details related to this topic of the chakras, to the topic of Kundalini energy, of a very different nature and alchemical, and what there are just not. Next.
I meditate on it, which shines in the cavity of Otto's mule. With the light of 10 million suns, a person becomes the lord of speech, and the king among people, initiated into all the teachings. He is freed from all diseases, and his deep spirit becomes full of great joy. With his elegant and persuasive speech, he serves all the major gods.
And look further. Here is my favorite topic, which is directly related to such a section, which is called Mantra Yoga. It is believed, according to this teaching, that every word that a person utters is, in fact, an emanation of Kundalini energy. That is, the Muladhara Chakra is our basic hidden energy of Kundalini. And, as you remember, we read there, on the one hand, the feminine principle that responds to any consciousness, that is, any of our awareness, when we want, we express our will to utter at least some articulate speech, and which comes from the center of consciousness, which means the top of our head is instantly picked up by these feminine principles. Here in particular, the image of Daki is not at the base of our body, and as if in a small amount, it causes the Kundalini energy to stir up, to make an emanation. And then this emanation begins to undergo various degrees of coarsening until it breaks down. From our mouth in the form of words. Therefore, strictly speaking, any word that a person utters is a small amount of awakened Kundalini energy. And then, you all know perfectly well that there are people you want to listen to. The greatest poets, the greatest actors. Here I review old Soviet films from time to time. You know, I don't even watch them. I listen to them more. Here he says some phrase there, Stirlitz, and I'm going to ask you to stay. But here and now, instantly, through this phrase. It pops up into the whole world, right? Not through what? How the actors are dressed. And recently Stirlitz was painted, they're in all the colors of the rainbow, right? And that's exactly the voice. And by and large, it's not for nothing that versification, or the ability to use one's speech, was considered the most important art. The most important art of this kind of creativity, going back to mantra yoga, because no matter how handsome an actor is, but if he starts talking, and his voice is out of tune, you don't want to look at him. This is the trouble, by the way, with all these modern TV series. There are all these modern productions. So the question arises, why do we want to listen to someone, and we don't want to listen to someone? The answer is as follows. The voice is false or not false, not in terms of whether it sounds beautiful or ugly, but if the basic awakening of energy is in the resonance of consciousness. Here we find such a very beautiful offshoot into another yoga, which is called Natya Yoga or theatrical yoga. In other words, the point is to play this or that role well, you have to live it. It is necessary that your consciousness, it was the consciousness of the hero you are playing. And then, if it is picked up by your basic energy, then your energy begins to play correctly. And this first of all begins to manifest itself through the voice, through speech. Here, and it's nice to listen to such a person speaker. He's mesmerizing. In fact, his ability to awaken his basic energy, the energy in Kundalini, located in the hammer of the Hara Chakra, fascinates. And look, as a consequence, from the opposite. Do you want to approach the Kundalini energy? Start working with your voice. Because it's like a two-way road. From one to the other and back again. Next.
And here is the lotus.
Ah, that's it. So that's it. And here, how? And here, oddly enough, the description of the Muladhara lotus ends in Shat Chakra Ne Rupani.
И здесь, вот на этом, как ни странно, в Шат Чакра Нирупане заканчивается описание.
Are there any questions yet that should be answered right away? Are there any questions in touch?
Есть ли пока какие-либо вопросы, на которые следует тут же ответить?
All right, that's wonderful.
Есть ли какие-то
Yes, please.
вопросы на связь?
About this book.
Yes.
How would you advise to work?
What kind of book do you mean?
Well, here's Avalon.
And the snake power.
Вы имеете в виду какую?
So, friends, here I wanted to go through all the books of Avalon, and, to be honest, I wanted to start charging the Gray Lecture on Arthur Avalon's book Snake Power.
По всем книжкам Авалона.
But at the very last moment, I was dissuaded and persuaded to take up his other book, which is called The Garland of Boo.
Змеиная сила. Но
It's coming now, a series of lectures by Garland who has just begun. What do I advise you? I advise you to try to read it,
гирлянда букв. Вот сейчас началась серия лекций.
but read slowly. As soon as you meet an unfamiliar word, take a piece of paper, take a pen, write it out, and, therefore, accordingly, look for a translation of it.
Знакомое слово. Берете лист.
In other words, it's about the same as if you were studying a fairly serious scientific treatise. You won't regret it, you know. That's how to read Mountains of Fiction, Mountains of This Mud, which is now being published in connection with energy, Kundalini. Chakras, I would advise you to throw all the newfound authors into these.
Горы вот этой мути, которая сейчас.
Here I even have here they even printed out some small pieces from the books of my contemporaries.
Выбросьте вы этих всех новоявленных.
Well, the seventh water on jelly.
Даже мне распечатали.
Here, if you chew through at least 3 or 4 pages there, it will go slowly. It will not be considered as a detective, I say right away. Then you will have the meanings of words, the meaning of images for the rest of your life, well, I mean in the field of yoga.
Будет читаться как детектив сразу.
Generally speaking, a monument should be erected to Sir John George Woodroffe.
Значение образов.
We seem to be all there now. Soon we will buy his book, biography.
Сэру Джону Джорджу Вудроффу
I suggest here is the very thing. Then I'll get to know him. So wonderful. And here's something else in addition. Yes, about Thursday 22:30, which disassembles a different force. What? Thursday 22. No, come on, wait. I'm something. I don't know yet. Here. So.
Давайте, подождите.
So, a short break, and then we will do something practically.
Значит, небольшой